Dallas Cowboys training camp coverage, powered by AA Best Bail Bonds, and in part by Texas Cheer Liquor, Cowboys AC and Heating, and Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds. Live from Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California, this is R&R in the Morning. Coverage powered by AA Best Bail Bonds, and in part by Texas Cheer Liquor, Cowboys AC and Heating, and Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds.
It's R&R in the morning. You're on the Star. He's Rudy. I'm Rob. Hey, make sure you go on to sasportstar.com on the regular. You get all the updates. You get all of our content. We'll call it that. You can check it all out. Make sure you're there on the regular basis. We get graded on that. We greatly appreciate it. If you're watching live, we do appreciate you because we've got us a star with us. One of our very favorites, Kristi Scales at DallasCowboys.com, sitting with us on our last real segment on the last day of Dallas Cowboy Training Camp 2022 for San Antonio Sports Star. Thank you. You're the closing act, Kristi.
Well, I didn't realize I'd have to do an injury report on the show host, but golly,
I know, right?
We had a pretty good camp in terms of injuries.
Yeah, we did. Well, yeah, so
How
far.
how's your toe, man?
Well, I was talking to my wife about it, and she goes, "Do you think that the training staff would take a look at your toe?" I was like, "Baby, no. I don't think that's going to be a real high priority for them. Like, hey, there's a radio guy over there with a sore toe. Can you take your eyes off Dak and Zeke and the practice and come over and maybe give him a little something for his boo-boo?" We won't go there. Not my personal problems enough. But thanks for stopping by. You know, as you are as veteran of a Cowboy reporter as there is. How long have you been doing this?
Well, this is my 32nd season with
Wow.
Cowboys Radio. It's my 24th on this sideline. I was the producer for the first 8 years, 91 through 98, and then I moved to the sideline in 99.
So when you so for the listener, like I always like to, get them behind the curtain. When you say you're on the sideline, what exactly are you doing? What do you do on the sideline?
Well, most of my in-game reports, unfortunately, are injury related. They're usually not morning show hosts
somebody's
from
in
San
the tent.
Antonio.
Yeah, somebody's in the tent. This guy just went back to the locker room, hamstring.
Sure,
Okay.
that, but also, I think the thing is, radio is so different from TV that
Way different.
you have to be the eyes of the listener. And we also don't have the resources that network TV does, where you have cameras everywhere. So I'm basically the eyes on the field for Babe Laufenberg and Brad Sham up in the booth. And so the important thing is not just when a player goes out, but what's the domino effect to that, who's in, and it not just who's in, but sometimes it changes 2 or 3 positions. And it also has a domino effect on special teams. So, you'll sometimes have it where an offensive lineman goes out, and most teams now only have 7 offensive linemen active on game day because of game day deactivation. So I've reported on defensive linemen going out there to block on field goals and PATs and things like that. So to me, a good sideline reporter isn't just, this guy, they're checking him out, or the blue 10 is up. And
what goes after that?
The other thing is, when you've been around it for a long time, and of course you're friends with the medical staff and the athletic trainers, I can tell you pretty much what the injury is by which of the 4 Cowboy doctors on the sideline is tending to the injury. So if it's Dr. Fowler, we don't say concussion anymore. We say cognitive evaluation. So they're undergoing a cognitive evaluation. And then if they take them back, and if it is a concussion, then of course you can say concussion. But Dr. Cooper does the limbs. If it's, Dr. Mueller would be neck and back and things like that. So there are little things that you pick up along the way. And then, for example, last year, Jaron Curse, the safety who had such a breakout season.
We love Curse.
He was I thought he was the most important addition last year, and really made such a difference for this defense because he's such a matchup guy, not just a safety, but they'll send him down in the box. He'll play linebacker and nickel. They'll match him up against tight ends in the slot. He took over the green dot duties. So that's calling the green. One player on the field on defense has a green dot on his helmet. That's the radio helmet. So he's the one taking the play calls from the defensive coordinator. So the quarterback gets the calls from the offensive coordinator. Only one player at a time on the field can wear a green helmet. 3 can be designated.
Okay, I was going to ask.
But 3 different players, because there's so much substitution on defense. But anyway, so like when Ron Curse is taking that. So I know that sounds like minutia and small
No,
things,
it's great information.
but I thank you. I think it is, and it's
information.
really important to the listeners. And most of the time it is injury, but it could be everything from conditions on the field. Again, people listening on the radio don't see that it's raining, or they can't see the flags that it's blowing 30 miles an hour. And if you're going into the wind, you're not going to attempt the field goal from 51 yards. You're going to have to go for it on 4. So there are all sorts of little things that happen. Yeah. But also your best friends, not just the medical staff, the athletic trainers and the equipment managers and people like that. Grass fields, often, bad footing. Those guys, they look like a NASCAR pit crew.
Right.
You've got it. Well, they've got these cordless drills. And so you don't change out the shoe, you change out the cleat on the bottom of the shoe. So you might go to a 5/8 or something like that. So they'll be like, and then screw the cleats and screw the new ones back on. So there's always stuff happening on the sideline, and it's fascinating.
As you've been to so many of these different camps, it's been my experience that there's always a plot that kind of gains steam through training camp. Last year it was there's the two I remember was Dak's shoulder, and, the tired shoulder. And then there was a buzz about the defensive backs. You brought up J-Ron Curse, and you could just kind of feel it when camp began that there was something different going on with Diggs and the addition of Curse and some other bodies. This year, what are you sensing? What's the overriding feel for you after? It's not long, but after 7 days at camp.
Yeah, a couple of young guys standing out, and your San Antonio native, Dennis Houston.
Yes.
Has turned a lot of heads and has surprised some media. It's interesting because on the flight out, we fly with the team, and so on the charter ride out, and the scouts know I'm going to ask them. Right. I'll just say, hey, who's your sleeper? And give me a couple, one on each side of the ball. And by sleeper, they know that I don't necessarily mean Jalen Tolbert because he's a third-round pick. All of the ones I asked had Dennis Houston among the guys on offense. Mm-hmm. And so am I surprised that he's running first team reps? Yes, absolutely. Because we didn't anticipate James Washington would be out, but I think he might be getting, he was already getting second team reps, and they really, really like him. And you heard Kellen Moore the other day talk about his attention to detail on the routes, and the fact that Dak, not only is he getting reps with Dak, but Dak's looking for him in these early practices. So that's wonderful. The other big thing to me, the biggest concern is not pass rush. It's not wide receiver. It's, can we make a freaking kick?
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Jerry says it's no big deal though. He came to the point and says no big deal. I just want a guy that can make an extra point. That's what he told Jason and Joe. On that, sitting right in that chair you're in, he said he's just worried about extra points.
Let me. I want to make sure I get the. I want to get the exact thing right, because here's the deal. The last 2 years, 23.1% of games. That's actually kind of low. If you go over the last 5 years, it's closer to 25%, like 24 point something. The last 2 years, 23.1% of NFL games were decided by 3 points or less. 47.7% of games were decided by 7 or fewer points. Every single kick in a game matters, even extra points. And Zerline's inconsistency last year was a killer for this team. 4 games by the Cowboys decided by 3 points or less. That's actually a little below this average. Yeah. We had 2 overtime games last year. But I'm telling you, from the perspective of being on the sideline in an NFL game, the number one most deflating thing. Now, I'm not counting an injury to Dak.
Right.
Of course.
Something like that, obviously devastating. But generally, on a game-to-game basis, the most deflating thing on the sideline in a game is a missed kick, and especially like a missed extra point, because it just...
Especially after a tough, long drive.
It's coming back to haunt you. You just know it's coming.
Absolutely. It's and especially last year when Zerline was being inconsistent. Now, again, he was hurt last year. He had a bad back, but still, it's just like,
what are you doing?
God,
well, here we sit. I mean, the two kickers are going back and forth. Neither one has separated themselves. There was a bit of an upward trend yesterday, I think. But...
Yeah, I think Kyra is doing much better than Garibay. What a great story Garibay would be. Kid from Texas Tech, and a Spanish speaker. Boy, what a boon for Cowboys marketing if he were actually to make the team. But I think Liram Hajrullahu is a wonderful story. Of course, he was with the Cowboys last year, filled in one game when Zerline was out with COVID. He didn't have to kick any field goals. He only had extra points, but he was 5 of 5. But he's a wonderful story. This is why I love training camp. Stories like Kavontae Turpin, who 1 year ago, I know that everyone's like, oh, he's the USFL guy. You know where he was playing 1 year ago?
I think it was
It was Poland.
There we go.
It was Poland.
Well, I was like, what?
As in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, not Poland Springs where you
I didn't know they had
water.
football leagues over there. I really didn't until I saw his story.
Well, he's playing the mighty Hamburg Sea Devils, you know, and teams like that. But what a great story for Turpin. But Hajrullahu is actually from Kosovo. And when he was 9 years old, his family had to flee. This is when Serbia and Slobodan Milosevic later brought up for war crimes. But his family immigrated from Canada, and they were actually on the final flight out from war-torn Kosovo to get to Canada. So he grew up there, had to learn English, and I think he speaks some French too, but he was in the English-speaking part. And of course, you know, later he started kicking in high school and then got a scholarship and now has all the, 3 postgraduate degrees. But it's a wonderful,
3 postgraduate degrees?
Oh yeah, he's a wonderful story and a great guy. And so, you got to root. I'm rooting for him too. So to me, that's.
So you find yourself every training camp, you find yourself rooting for a certain person?
Sure.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, when you write for the game day program, or whether it's DallasCowboys.com or whatever, but game day program, after how many years? 30 something?
32, I think you said.
Whatever. I mean, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, you need some new, fresh material. and so I find myself, you're trying to search out, some of these background things. So all I can say, the other thing is with the game day program, you have to write like 2.5 weeks ahead. And so I don't have to anything due until the 3rd preseason game. That's our first home game. Well, I've had to turn in a story. So I'm just praying that Turpin makes it to preseason game 3 because he's my feature story. And I've got him talking about playing in Poland.
You think he'll make it to 3?
Oh yeah.
I think he will.
He's got a real chance to contribute as a return specialist this year. And I know that y'all saw in practice yesterday where they had him doing the jet sweeps.
Yes.
And stuff like that. So
and you can see a potential there. And you talk about opportunities with Washington going down. It really kind of shuffled the deck for the young kids and gave some of these guys an opportunity to do some things I don't think they thought they were going to have a chance to do.
And the Cowboys were terrible on punt returns last year, 3rd worst in the league in punt return average. And so a young guy like this, we need some dynamic players in returns because you're certainly not going to put CD Lamb back there. Remember that punt returns were CD Lamb sharing with Cedric Wilson. Cedric left in free agency, so he's a Miami Dolphin now, and CD Lamb's your number 1 guy. And please do not put him on the field for a punt return.
I agree with that. I mean, you're going to end up paying him max money one day, so no need to run him out there and get him hurt.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Kristi Scales joining us here on San Antonio Sports Star. You're going to hear her for every game. She does sideline reporting. You're going to hear from her on the regular on all of our regular broadcasts. She's part of what we do. You've been part of the Dallas Cowboys since I can remember. So we're honored. Well, I mean, we come up together and just it's part of family when we get football season back together.
Absolutely.
As you look forward to the season, what's your just general outlook? Are you comfortable? Are you confident?
No, but here's the thing.
At least you're honest.
No, there are a lot of good things to look forward to, but generally the Cowboys over the past couple decades have done better when expectations are low. They
don't play well as the
people.
hunted. They don't play well as the hunted at all.
So I think they should win the East. But the thing is,
I think Philly got better, Chris.
They absolutely got better, especially AJ Brown. Washington's better.
And I think Hurt's going to be better, and they led the league in rushing last year. So it's going to be a tougher division this year.
They gave him more weapons in the passing game, that's for sure. But here's the, this team is not going to be measured by winning the East or getting in the playoffs. It's what you're going to do once you get there. And so last season, all the 12 wins and it really was a great season. But then if you lose to San Francisco in the wild card round at home, I'm sorry, it was a disappointment. And so, and when you don't make splashy free agent acquisitions in the offseason, and when you draft an offensive lineman in the first round, I'm not saying Tyler Smith's a bad pick. I think it's a good pick, but it's not a splashy, fun, exciting pick. So, fans, I understand why expectations are low. They're low among a lot of the media. But again, this team generally does better like when the expectations are lower.
I think you can go all the way back to Dak's rookie year. They go 13-3. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, I know exactly what you mean. And then they lose the division. So no, it's like, oh, well, they're going to be sorry again. The next thing you know, they win the division again. So who knows?
Were y'all saying that is Jason, are they going live are they at LA Live?
We'll be at LA.
They'll be the ESPN LA Day.
Yeah. So LA Live next to, I forget what they call it now. It used to be Staples.
Crypto.com
Arena.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was actually, confession. I can tell you the exact day that Kellen Moore was injured, when he was our backup quarterback, and then Dak Dak stepped up. It was August 2nd of 2016, Dak's rookie year, because I was at LA Live when that happened, because I had tickets to the Barbra Streisand concert.
I remember this, Kristi. I remember the fact that
you were here too.
I was here. I can tell you where I was. It's like my JFK moment. I remember exactly when everybody turned and it rippled across the field.
So I left before practice ended because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss Barbra Streisand. When it's old people who are performing in concerts, the concerts starts on time.
Yeah.
So, and traffic's so bad, so I left at like 1:30 or 2 o'clock, and so I'm there like 3 hours early. And I told my colleagues, jokingly, text me if somebody breaks a leg.
You did?
And it's like, oh my gosh. So I'm in the parking lot of Staples Center, and I get the text. It's like, oh no, Kellen Moore carted off. Well, I'm a veteran reporter enough, as you have to carry the Cowboy reports. I take my computer and my recorder with me. So before the Barbra Streisand concert, I'm in my car in the parking lot doing the Cowboys report, and I pulled a Kellen Moore cut from an OTA like back in May, and that was the Cowboy report for the next day. But I did make it to the Streisand concert,
which was
time,
really
and that's what's important.
That's all that
mattered. And it all turned out pretty well for Dak as well. And Kellen also, as I saw him walk by on that healthy leg just a minute ago. Kristi Scales, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
You were the perfect icing on the cake. That was.
We needed this.
Training camp
Some
coverage.
good info.